Hi everyone, and welcome to this video. Students and graduates often ask me how best to prepare for competency interviews. So in today's video, I wanted to take you through what competency interviews are and the skills that they try and assess during the application stages. Secondly, I wanted to provide you with an overview of the S.T.A.R framework. This is a framework that is very useful in helping you formulate your responses during your competency interview. And what you will notice is that even though students may be leveraging a framework to respond to specific questions, they often forget to quantify the results of their achievements or their outcomes. So I wanted to take you through some tips and tricks that will enable you to successfully quantify your achievements during the application process. And with that introduction, let's dive into the rest of this video. Competency interviews, particularly as they relate to technology consulting, try and assess whether you are a good fit for a career in the tech industry or not. So a good way to prepare for these interviews is to conduct what I call a self-audit. So a self-audit is where you think about your strengths and weaknesses, and you make a list of past experiences that tie back to the core competencies of the firm that you are applying to. In the next slide, we will cover the types of core competencies that you should prepare responses for. But just as an example, if you feel that you are highly adaptable and you thrive under pressure, then try and prepare examples of past experiences where you can indeed prove that you have successfully navigated change and dealt with pressure in a very calm way. In the interviews, what you will notice is that once you give an example, the interviewer will likely probe you with further follow-up questions. So make sure that you're calm and you leverage a framework that can essentially enable you to structure your responses well. On this slide, I've listed some important core competencies that you can expect to come across during your interview stages. So as you can see, they can be broadly categorized into four main areas: teamwork, problem solving, leadership, and adaptability. So during your interview prep, make sure you prepare responses for teamwork and leadership, which are a bit more generic in nature. When it comes to teamwork, as an example, you will be tested on your ability to prove that you can collaborate effectively with others and your ability to effectively listen to others as they provide their inputs and ideas. When it comes to leadership, you will be assessed on your ability to drive change and influence others to achieve specific business outcomes. So for both these core competencies, make sure that you prepare responses by leveraging the S.T.A.R framework. We cover this on the next slide. Moving back to some of the core competencies that are tested in the tech consulting space, one thing I've noticed is that majority of tech consulting interviews lean a bit more heavily towards assessing problem solving, and this is because of the nature of a tech consultant's role. Within tech consulting, you will see that there will be a lot of areas which require analytical thinking and innovation. And innovation is important because not every outcome is set in stone. As technology adapts, you will have to come up with ways in which you can creatively think outside the box and come up with lateral solutions to a problem which is existing in the organization. Now that we've covered some of the core competencies that you can expect to be tested on this slide, I wanted to provide you with a useful framework that you can leverage to respond effectively to competency interview questions. This is known as the S.T.A.R framework, and as you can see, it's got four main components which represent situation, task, actions, and results. To begin with an overview of what a situation would represent, this is when you will start to respond to an interview's question by framing the situation that you found yourself in or the situation that you had to deal with. Next, moving on to task, this is where you explain to the interviewer the exact task or items that you had to complete as part of your response. Moving on to action, this is where you talk about and discuss the specific actions that you took in order to complete the task above. The reason why I've mentioned that actions need to be specific is because often candidates give vague responses on the steps that they took, but they're not specific about their individual contribution. So it's very important in the action stage to be aware of this exact steps that you took as an individual to reach or meet a specific outcome. Finally, as you can see, I've highlighted the role of results, and this is where you are supposed to talk about and discuss the exact results of the actions that you took in the previous stage. The reason why I have highlighted this step in a different shape, as you can see, is because often students are very successful in following through the S.T.A.R framework, talking about the situation, specifying the contents of their actions, and then talking about the tasks that they worked on. However, when it comes to results, they often fail to quantify or provide measurable outcomes as to the results that they have achieved. And this essentially marks candidates down during the interview stage. So in the next slide, I wanted to cover ways in which you can successfully quantify results in order to make sure that your responses are strong and effective. Earlier on in this video, I spoke about the importance of an effective self-audit, which is where you prepare a list of responses that tie back to the core competencies of the organization. In this section, I wanted to emphasize how important it is for candidates to quantify and measure their results. Because what I often notice is, whilst candidates are good at describing the situation, tasks, and actions, they fail to make the results very concrete. This essentially harms how good your response is, because interviewers are looking at your ability to be able to quantify your results and showcase how successful you have been in achieving a specific outcome. This is exactly why the results section of the S.T.A.R framework is so important in measuring how successful you are in your application stage. As you can see on the right-hand side, I have listed ways in which you can effectively quantify your results. And some ways to do this could be to talk about the number of times you've achieved something, or a percentage increase in revenue, a percentage decrease in cost. And if you don't have specific examples of numbers, you can always talk about ranges. So ranges where, rather than saying that you increased revenue by X amount or you decreased the number of manual processes by Y, you can talk about a range of improvement. So for example, you engaged in a new social media campaign and you were able to increase the number of user engagements by 100 to 150. Finally, where your results have had a more lasting impact, you can talk about the frequency of your results. So you can talk about an increase or a decrease in the number of times something happens or doesn't happen. As an example, you can say that as part of your engagement efforts, the number of customer complaints have gone down by 50 every month or 50% every year. These are good ways in which you can quantify your results and ensure that your responses are very specific and direct. This brings us to the end of this introductory video on competency-based interviews. We looked at the importance of leveraging a logical and structured framework such as S.T.A.R to respond effectively to interview questions. We also discussed the importance of results quantification, because quantified results and ensuring that you are able to measure your success are key indicators of whether or not you succeed in a competency-based interview. Finally, we also talked about the importance of conducting an effective self-audit, which is where you make a list of your strengths and weaknesses so that you can rely on that list when answering competency-based interviews. If you found this content helpful, please feel free to like and subscribe to my UniStars channel, and also we are giving out a free competency-based interview guide on our website. Until then, I will speak to you next week. Thanks very much for watching, and take care.